Hello, everybody. Okay, before we start talking about this amazing movie that is called the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, which is a long name, I'm aware, but it's a freaking amazing film, so, that's totally fine. Nobody cares about having to remember a long name. If the movie is amazing, then everybody will just do it. Which this movie we certainly will, because this movie is freaking incredible. But we will talk about this in a second. What I first wanted to talk to you about is my podcast setup, because I talk to so many people who are so scared to start something they want to do, they would love to do. And what I want to say is that it really doesn't take a lot. You don't need a lot of stuff to start. You just need to kind of start, and then you just go from there. And that means that when you start and you don't make like a big thing out of starting, like if it's not a big deal to start, then you can just kind of mess up along the way. Do you know what I mean? Like right now, I'm sitting at my desk, which I also study and work, and I have this lamp, like this power by the sun kind of lamp, and in its box on the side. And then I have a box of tissue standing up, and I built that up so that my phone can be on top of that, laying down, so that I can speak directly into my phone as the microphone. That's what I'm speaking into. There's no fancy microphone, there's nothing fancy about this. I'm just speaking into my phone, like I'm calling with you. Which just basically feels like a one-sided call, where sometimes I'm like, wow, I really talk a lot when I when I think about this. But yeah, that is my setup, and I wanted to say this because for there have been so many ideas that I'm like, oh, this is so cool to do, and kind like over the last couple of years, more and more, but mostly over the last year, it's come to my head. It's gotten into my head like, okay, well, why couldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you just start and try? And hey, if you fail, that's fine. Then you just quit and you do something else. Here's the thing. Stopping with something you don't like to do is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean you fail, it just means that it's not for you. That's not a bad thing. And that, I think, is the thing that people sometimes forget. It's like, hey, you can try a lot of things. That also means that a lot of things won't work for you. That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing when certain things don't work for you. Doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you a quitter, just makes you smart to stop with the things you don't want to do. Like, don't do the things you hate forever, because it will make you miserable. It's not how it works. So, that's a bit I wanted to share on making a podcast. Just start. If you want to make a podcast about anything, just start. If you want to make make a short video, make an Instagram account about anything, about something, no matter what it is, just start. Just try it. And if it's not for you, if after some time you're just done with it, you're like, well, that was it. That's fine. As long as your livelihood doesn't depend on it, you can just quit. And doesn't mean you shouldn't try, or you shouldn't like stick it out when it gets hard. If you really want to do it, you'll fight through the hard parts and you'll get to the other side. But if you don't like doing it, and that stays the same, that feeling sticks around, then go, like, leave it. Don't do it anymore. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And I hope you hear this and you get that, and then you go do and try all the things you want to try. Because a lot of the things you want to try, you'll be like, oh, this was cool to do. I don't need to do this again now. Like, I'm good. Like, I went to Canada and I rode, like, fanatically 6 days a week, 2 times a day for 2.5 months. Yes, and then I fractured my bone, so I couldn't walk anymore. Which was unrelated to the rowing. It was actually cycling, which sucks because I'm Dutch. I should know how to cycle. Somehow I keep breaking stuff when I cycle. Like, I always get hurt cycling. It's a very weird thing that maybe it's because I'm Dutch. I'm so much on my bike that, like, most of the time that's where I get hurt because I'm just there a lot. But it sucks. I used to have this friend. We cycled to elementary school and high school, and those are like the 2 schools you have growing up in the Netherlands. Like, you don't have middle school. I've never understood completely what that is. So, but like from age 6 to age 18, we cycled together to school. And I was always the person who fell if we like biked into each other. Always. I was on the ground and she was just standing there like, are you okay? I don't know how I mean, I have horrible balance, I'm aware, but she just never fell down. And that frustrated the crap out of me sometimes. Not that I wanted her to fall down, but I was always the one on the ground. Like, that is not a nice, like, that is not a good, that's not how it's supposed to be, you know? I don't know, does that make sense? So, okay, the movie we will talk about today is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. So, what does that title include? It includes Guernsey, an island close to France, and England. So, I've never been there. I really, really, really want to go there. Like, it is because of this movie. I do have to say that because of this movie, the place got on my map, and because of this movie, I really, 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 really want to go there because I am fascinated by the Second World War, and that's because of my dad and my grandpa and my other grandpa, and that is like the whole family history that's connected to the military and the fascination with wars and the stories. And I mean, my grandpa has stories of like hiding people during the Second World War, and because they used to live on a farm, and people from the city would like flee to the countryside, and that's where they would like live out the final years of the war because it was that bad in the city. I don't know if you know anything about the Dutch Second World War history, but it was quite intense, to say the least. And I just finished a book. It's called The Winter Soldier. Yeah, I was looking for it. The Winter Soldier, and it's written by Daniel Mason. So this book is about the First World War, and it's about a doctor from Austria who, it's actually about a medical student who applies for the war or for the military, and then he gets sent to Poland as a doctor. And it's a fascinating story, and it shows so many aspects of war that you don't think about that much when you're not in war, when you're not learning about war as much as we used to. You forget so many parts of war that were horrible, or just like that you can't grasp if you haven't lived it. And books and movies are our way to get close to grasping it, because we should. Here's the thing. Here's my theory about war. When you forget the last war, when people forget what war was like, you get another one. Now, I know this sounds horrible. I know, I'm aware. But here's the thing. When the First World War was done, well, when it ended, when they signed, when like one won, between brackets, and the other one lost, Germany under Hitler built itself up again. And when Germany was on the rise and was growing and was doing well, people started to forget the First World War. And my theory is that is part of the reason why the second one happened. Here's the thing. The First World War, people didn't know or didn't think about war, like what it would entail, what it would mean. Like, they went to war cheering and being like, we'll be back in a couple weeks, in a couple months, like before Christmas we'll be home. And it took 4 years because people underestimate war. They underestimate how horrible it can be, how long it can take. And they underestimate that, hey, if you've grown into this strong empire, maybe the other party has too. Like, you'll be going head to head, like you'll be the same strength. And in war, if you're the same strength, you might move an inch or a mile, but you'll be in war forever until there's a power that overthrows the other one. And I mean, the First World War showed that, and then they forgot over time, over getting out of the hardship, over the resentment and the anger after the First World War. It was still there. It was lingering, and Germany grew and grew, and the people were like, well, we want our piece of land back. And then they took their piece of land back, and then everything else happened. And and then the Cold War happened after that. And then the Vietnam War happened after that. And my worry is, And it's not to say that I support war. I'm not a fan of war. Although I get what people sometimes say that it's or not necessary, but that it's the only way sometimes to get through something. I get that, but the problem is that when we forget what war is like, some people start to think like it's a good idea. Some people start to think like it's a good way to get ahead, and they forget the horrors, the terrible, terrible, terrible things war does and war brings. Because war is not pretty, it's not beautiful, it's heartbreaking and it's horrible, and people lose limbs, and people lose people, and people lose lives, and people lose livelihoods, and I mean cities get bombed. It's terrible. War is terrible. And I get that. I get that it's not that simple. I know that. I'm aware. Because I've been learning about it all my life. Like I've had my dad, my grandpa, my teachers. I've had amazing teachers who could tell. I have so much respect for these people who could tell amazing stories about the war, and who educated me about everything related to the war. Like everything I know, I owe to other people. Like I owe it to the people who advised me the books, to the people who told me the stories, to the people who showed me what I should see. Still to this day, to my dad telling me which movies I should watch. And war is not a pretty thing. And the aftermath of war, we don't talk about that a lot. Like we talk about the First and the Second War, but we don't talk a lot about the aftermath of war, right? So this movie is the aftermath of war. It's 1946. It's after the war, and somehow people behave like the war is over, except that it isn't for the people who lived through it. Like Guernsey, the war isn't over until everybody's home or accounted for, and so in this movie, there are a couple of people I want to point out. There's Lily James, who you might know from Cinderella, from Mamma Mia 2, from Baby Driver, from what are all the other movies I know her from? I don't know. Well, those movies are pretty good, I would say. And there is Matthew Good, if that's the right way to say it, from Chasing Liberty. That's how I know him. He also is in Downton Abbey and and some others. And Michiel Huisman, who is Dutch. I just have to say that. He is Dutch. He's in The Age of Adeline. He's in Game of Thrones. He is Dutch. I am very proud, because when I found this out, I was so freaking proud. He's in Irreplaceable You. He's in 222. He's Dutch. I need to share that because I'm very proud of my Dutch people. Because I'm a very happy person. Like I'm very proud to be Dutch because I love being Dutch. And we get a lot of shit sometimes, Dutch people, but I freaking love being Dutch. And I think you should love where you're from, because it's what made you you. So I do think that you should love who you are, and that also means where you're from. At least to me it does. So to me, part of who I am is I'm Dutch. Like I'm straightforward. I will tell you what I think, and I will not like try and go around it. I'll just be straightforward because that's the way we talk. And people don't always like that because it's very straightforward sometimes. But it's my thing, you know. That's how I talk. That's how I'll speak to you. And if you can't handle that, well, that sucks. But you gotta get a little bit tougher. That's how I got tough. Like people just, they don't move around your feelings. They'll just be like, no, you did this and it's not okay, or you said this and that was bad, or you made this person feel like shit for saying that you shouldn't do that, or you messed up. Like we'll tell you, hey, you messed up. Hey, this sucks. You messed up. You should not do that again. So let me see. Where are we even going to start? Guernsey is beautiful. Here's the thing about this movie. This movie is also a lot about family, and it's not about family by blood. It's about family you choose, and you stick with. Like the book club, I mean, it started as like a lie, but they turned it into a real book club, and it was so important for them because it got them through the war. And there are so many things about this book club that I love, and the way they read, the way they talk about books. I mean, I love books. It makes me so happy to see a movie where people are so passionate about the books they read and about the stories that they share, and it made me so proud to love books too. To be like, yes, that is how you want to talk about this, and the potato pie sounds awful. I don't even know why Juliet, why she took a bite, because it sounded like I saw it and I was like, oh no, why would you eat that? That sounds horrible. Like, it's potatoes and potato peels. That's like, and that's all? There's no butter, no sugar, nothing? You shouldn't eat that, honey. Like, honey, no. No. So here's the thing about, okay, so in her letter she writes, is it possible to already belong to somebody before you met them? And to Darcy she says, it felt like writing to somebody who already knew me, so I didn't have to explain myself too much. And it's this thing that some people just fit with you straight from the get-go, right? Like, it's just you connect, and that's it. You're good. Like, you're set. You there you go. Like, you're friends for the longest time, or you click and you're going on dates because that's the right thing. Like, I had a friend, I was once like, well, so you're in a relationship, like, was he your friend first? And she was like, and she was in a friend group, so I was like, well, was he a friend? And then it turned to something more, and she was like, there was always something more between us. And I was like, oh, that is so interesting. Like, it wasn't like of course it grew, but it wasn't like it didn't exist at the beginning. It was always there. And it just took time for them to go with that and roll into a relationship, basically. But it made me so happy to hear that, because it was so interesting to me that I've had this for the longest time. With some people it clicks and you're good to go rest of your life. There you go. Like, it's like friendship for as long as it will as long as I get with this person, I'll take it because it's amazing. And other people, it kind of doesn't click. Like, you want to talk to them and you want to be happy and friends with them, but there's something about it that doesn't click. So even though you try and you have fun together, it's not the same. And that is something that I've come to realize is that's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just that some people click with you better than others. And okay, so let me see. Another thing, and that is also, that's related to this, is like, some people click with you better than others. Some things just don't feel right, even though they look right on the outside. Here's the thing. She gets on the boat, and just before she gets on the boat, Mark proposes to her, and then she says yes, because it's like, what the hell are you gonna do? But then she gets on the boat, and then she gets to Guernsey, and she puts the ring on a handkerchief, which I think is genius. But she doesn't wear it because it doesn't sit right. And that's not because it doesn't fit on her finger. It's because it doesn't feel right. And this is so interesting because the ring is big, right? And I would never wear a ring like that. But because it's so big and like it gets in the way and it's like, ugh. But the interesting thing is that at the end of the movie, the ring she's wearing is very simple. And that's the difference between the life in London and the life in Guernsey. And it's not that one is better than the other. They're not. They're just different. They're the right thing for different people. The life in Guernsey is more simple. It's more family. It's closer connections. It's more family than people you know or people you meet at parties or like distant friends or something. It's you know your neighbors, you know the people around you, you know the people on the island, and that is what she sees and that is what she learns. And I think that's also what she realizes she's missing when she walks around there. She's like, wait, this is family. These people know each other and they'll be there for each other and they help each other out, and they're like, even though they're not all related, that doesn't matter because that's how they behave. Whereas in the city, she's dressed up. I mean, she looks gorgeous in these dresses, of course, but she's all dressed up, for a night out, and it's all like showing off and looking fancy. Whereas at Guernsey, she looks beautiful in countryside clothes, and it's different clothes. She looks beautiful in either way. She fits in either way, but she's happier on Guernsey than she is in London. And so life is rough, right? And it's heavy and it's hard, and even for the strongest ones among us, life is tough. And you can see that in the people in Guernsey as well. Like it's very evident that life wasn't easy during the war. Life has never been that easy on the island, but it was hard during the war. And they lost people and they had to send their kids away, which must have been horrible. I mean, knowing they were safe in London was a good, or like on the countryside of England was a good thing, but I mean, sending your kids away, I can't even imagine how hard that must be. And then the whole thing with Elizabeth, and then, I mean, Darcy saying, like, I should have nailed her to the floor. And I was like, it's not your fault. Like, it was not his fault. And that was Elizabeth. Elizabeth was the person who spoke up. Elizabeth was the woman who tried to protect the boy. Elizabeth was the woman who died because she was fighting back for a girl who was being beat by a stick. The girl was saved. She was not. But that was in Elizabeth's character, and you cannot... It was her character. She would have done it either way. You cannot blame a person for having that kind of character. You shouldn't, because... Yeah, maybe she could have lived a very long life. I mean, I bet she could have. The thing about her is... and you wouldn't know, of course, you wouldn't know. She might have died the next day of, I don't know, the flu. But she went down fighting like a champ, the way she does, in the way she believes is right. And there is something to be said for people who go down fighting, even if they're young, for the right things. Like for the things that they believe in, that they think are right. There's something about that is special, that makes these people... that makes you want to look up to these people, that makes you think these people are wonderful people, because they're special. Like there's nothing like them, because they have this character, and they don't just act on this character, they are their character. And that is something that, I mean, I admire that so much. And I have so many things that I think about when I think about the war, and when I think about all this stuff, and when I think about people forgetting the war and forgetting about the horrible things that happened, and people being scared to think about it. And I'm like, no, honey, you might be scared to think about it, but people lived the war. You only have to think about the war. So you better think about it, and then tell people the stories so that people don't forget, so that we don't get another one. Because here's the other thing. If we get another war, then we're all doomed, because we have now nuclear weapons. So we can't get another war because we'll be doomed. So, but the thing about the war that I've always wondered what people think is, can you blame soldiers for the war? Because I don't think you can. Here's the thing. Soldiers... when you have foot soldiers, and then I mean, like, I'm now just thinking about foot soldiers. They enlist for the love of their country, or because they think it's the right thing. And then they get into the war, and they get to the front, and they realize that there was this story about, what was it, about Germans and um I don't know, was it the French front where it was Germans and French people, and they stopped fighting. They started doing things together. Like they started playing music together, doing all these things together, and they stopped fighting. Nobody died for weeks. But then from higher up, they told them that anybody talking or cheering or being nice to the enemy would be killed. So those were the orders. Therefore, one of the two got back to shooting at the others, and then the others got back to shooting at them, and that's how they killed more people. These people were friends. They didn't fight each other because they didn't like each other. They fought each other because they had to. And that is the problem I have with war. Do you believe that your cause is the right cause? Do you believe that the other people are bad people? This is the thing. If you have like specific targeted people that you need to kill, or if you just wait for this whole group of other people, how can you say all those people are bad? It's like in the movie, right? Like Elizabeth and Christian. Christian is not a bad person. Elizabeth loves Christian. They have kids together. However, Christian never knows that because they find Christian sneaking into the camp and then they send him away and then he dies on a ship. It sucks. Freaking sucks. This is the thing with war. It's most of the time it sucks. And then there are the little bits, right? Like them getting to know Christian. Christian was a good person. Because you can't generalize. You can't blame all the soldiers for the war. They signed up for one reason, but when they got there, they realized that it's not that simple. War is not that simple. And foot soldiers, if they got to know their enemy, they would never fight them. Because they wouldn't hate their enemy. But they get this idea in their head, like they get it from somebody else. They get like indoctrinated that the others are bad. They're not though. It's not that simple. Yeah. So another thing that is more to the end of the film is it's a little bit, but it's when they get the book and they get the little letter, and then what's his name? The old man says to Darcy, is like, out loud, son, out loud. And it reminded me of like Sinterklaas poems that we do at December 5th every year, where you write a poem to others and then they have to read it out loud. That is the whole thing. Like the first time you read it, you have to read it out loud so that everybody sees your reaction, and like we all listen to it, listen to you speaking and reading it out loud. It's very awkward. It's also very funny, which is why it's so funny to make them personal, because you get this person laughing, smiling, looking awkward, maybe a tear if you're really good. Yeah. So finally, I mean, this movie is a good movie. It shows so many aspects of the war that need to be addressed, and of the aftermath of the war that should be addressed, and that people seem to forget over time, and it's so important that we don't. And I can't stress that enough. It's so important that we don't forget the wars, because forgetting things like the wars is a dangerous thing. If you forget history, you'll repeat it. And they always say, right, history repeats itself. Please don't. Please don't. We've had enough wars and fighting and pain and hurt and horrible stuff. Could we please not do this again? So I'll finish with this. At the end of the movie, Juliet goes to find Darcy and he goes to find her. Because is it possible to belong to somebody before you've met them? Yes, it is, my darling. Yes, it is. And they both go to find each other, and she said, like, I'm on my way to find you. And he says, well, I was on my way to find you as well. Or she says that. And it's like, would you like to marry me? She asked that. I'm in love with you, so I thought I'd ask. And he's like, oh my God, yes. And they live in the house that used to be Elizabeth. And, it's all right. and it's hard. It's not perfect, but it's all right, and that kind of makes it great. So yeah, I hope that you take something away from this.